Imagining all peoples fleeing or sitting in jail. Coño, los gringos are not messing around. I think it's time for Plan B.
Hello?
Señor Presidente.
Maduro.
Chamo, let's make a deal to stop this crazy war.
I'm listening.
You like to deport people.
I do.
And I need to import people.
I can hear Stephen Miller's tail wagging already.
Send me the Democrats.
The what?
Los demócratas. Deport them todos to Venezuela.
High crime and rigged elections? They're gonna love it there.
It's a paradise.
Mamdani I can't live without now, but I'll send you AOC.
We can use her help to rebrand for Generación Z.
Would you even take the super annoying ones like Newscomb?
Con mucho gusto. Gavin and I both have beautiful hair and each have lost millions of our people to Texas and Florida.
What about Pelosi?
Yes, her net worth alone will support the Venezuelan economy for years.
Alright, and I assume you're taking Jeffries and crying Chuck Schumer?
Those are the two useless ones that do nothing, yes?
Absolutely nothing.
Deal.
You know, I can't believe you're willing to import a potentially serious political opposition.
Ay, Dios mío, you almost killed me there.
You never know, I still might.
Somewhere in the city that defines holiday magic is a man who wants a little eggnog with his mistletoe. And that guy would like to carol you. Featuring the musical stylings of Antoni and the Dream in Color Singers. Straight ahead, DJ Antoni, should America finally repeal the income tax? Anna Anderson fighting for real health care. Carrie Sheffield and a convergence she had with Pastor Greg Laurie. Todd Chatman ending slavery in our time. Sketch comedy from the puppet regime, Al Berry, Babylon Bee, and Nick Peterson. And in the spotlight, it's Lady A debuting brand new Christmas music this holiday season. And now from Times Square, he swears he's never captained a boat filled with white bags of something or other heading north. Here's the Kevin!
I gotta tell you, friends, I am so in the Christmas spirit this year. I was playing the Christmas music before the Thanksgiving Day holiday. I think I made mention of that maybe on the air. And then we got the new show, the new radio show that's in 407 cities Monday through Friday. And now we are fully into the swing of the Christmas cycle, which we mark by a couple of things. The Rockefeller tree getting lit, and when it wants to party, it can really get lit. But beyond that, all the other parties are going on. And I want to say thank you to the Heritage Foundation, who invited me to their 20th. I think it was their 20th anniversary of their Christmas party in New York City. Marguerite Bowling doing a great job there, and all the friends. I don't want to brag or anything, but this weekend, Sunday afternoon around 2 p.m., I'm going to the White House for a little Christmas reception, which is kind of fun. All my friends have already been. I'm the last one, but I'm going. And Dr. Gina Loudon said she's going to meet me there, so we're going to have a good time. Anyway, welcome to the weekend. Got lots going on this weekend. The trip to DC and back is going to be super fast, but we've got more tree lightings, more parties, all kinds of things coming up. And I thought it was going to slow down as we got past the election and moved into the new year, but it's done just the opposite. And today's show is a perfect example of that. We've got people talking about health care, which, was pretty much dead until the shutdown. And then the shutdown happens. And now people are like, hey, what am I paying for when it comes to my health care? Not exactly sure. Think we might need to revisit this. And then they're going, wait, Obama subsidies for who? People making $400,000 a year? What? So we got that going on. We've got so much to be thankful for, so much to be grateful for. And one of the things I'm most grateful for is that we have now helped over 120 human lives be saved out of slavery. We still have a good number to go before the end of the year, but friends, you can help us with that, 888-342-1010 if you'd like to. But the story that got me this week, there were two. One, all of the silly people in D.C., and boy, is that place packed with them, but all the silly people in D.C. that were running around going, oh my goodness, we double tapped on the drug boat. Now, the mission of the entire exercise to begin with was to kill and destroy the drug boats, to make sure they can't bring the fentanyl, which you need about this much to kill you. They can't bring that to the United States. So the mission was very clear: kill and stop the drug boats, sink them, send them to the bottom of the ocean, boom. And then for this one where the boat didn't sink after we hit it again, and then it sank. And then someone over at the Washington Post supposedly has a source that wants to remain anonymous because they have so much courage, saying that they know for a fact that there were people still alive on that boat. Now, I saw the footage. If you survived the first blast, you were basically being burned to death to begin with. I think a second shot probably was an act of mercy, not an act of meanness. But nevertheless, people are all upset about that. But that's not the story that people should be upset about, because that's where we're actually killing the evildoers. That's where we're keeping in check the people that want to take out 200,000 Americans per year. That's how many people died of fentanyl in 2024, 200,000 plus. Biggest year we've had the fentanyl deaths. And that's more than a lot of cities in certain states. Whole population's just gone because of the fentanyl. So so they're getting justice. That's what should be happening to them. Scripture says you take a life, you lose yours. You took 200,000 of ours, get ready. Here comes the Grim Reaper. That aside, there is a story that is truly heinous. And it's the fact that these people that were in the previous administration allowed someone to use a presidential signature without the president's knowledge. Now, I don't know if Joe Biden is cognizant enough to be able to know that people used him. But this invention called the autopen has to be one of the all-time worst things we've ever brought into government. What possible good can an autopen do when the president's signature is probably, with most certainty, the number one most valuable national security asset we have in the country? How can it be that this is the most valuable asset that we have, and we let interns not necessarily, but non-elected staffers and others are in the back scribbling his name on things without us knowing? Now, I didn't know this, but the Biden administration signed over 4,200 executive actions. That's all the clemencies, pardons, and executive orders that he did in 4 years. That beats Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama had the record prior to that with like 2,800. But 4,200, of which about 2,200 of them, 2,500 of them, were actual clemencies for wrongdoing. So saying that people didn't do what they did, or that they're going to be cleared of it, they're not going to have to stand trial for it anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So 2,500 clemencies. And we don't know how many of those were signed by the autopen, but let's put them under a microscope and take a look. Now, to President Trump's credit, because a lot of people on the right thought it's wrong that Hunter Biden gets a pass, but his dad was president, so he pardoned him. Friends, that's what the pardon power is for. And to President Trump's credit, he said, you know what? I think that was one of the pardons that President Biden probably knew that he was doing, and he should be allowed to keep that one. But friends, you had people, I'm not fibbing you. You had people signing executive orders on behalf of the president using the autopen that he then would have arguments with legislators. There's this one legendary story. He and Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, are in a back room after a meeting, and he said, "Mr. President, can I ask you a question?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Why did you sign this piece of legislation? It does this, 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 and this, and I don't understand why you would sign that." And he said, "I never signed that. We never put that executive order into action. You're wrong." Well, it turns out they did, with the autopen. And the president didn't even know it. This is my point. An autopen for the president's signature is a bad idea. The president's signature is one of the most powerful national security assets that we have. And it should only be done by presidents who are cognitive enough to be able to sign their own name and know what is signed in their name. Kevin McCullough coming right back. We've got a huge show for you this weekend. Lady A is here. Stay with us.
Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all things related to the show, podcasts, videos, the column, and once again, very excited to welcome you in on the 407 brand new stations that have been added to us via the Salem Media Group. So thankful for the brand new footprint. I'm very eager to welcome back also economist E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation. He keeps his eyes peeled on all things economically related to what's going on. EJ, it's good to see you. Thank you for being back with us. The president has tacitly, in some ways, and in other ways more pronouncedly, played with the idea of repealing the income tax for a long time. This goes back to his 2015 campaign when he has at least, postulated, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this. He certainly is a big fan of tariffs. But what are the drawbacks? What is the plan that he has in mind to the degree that we know it, and how would it work?
Well, I'm not sure there's so much a plan as just an idea. Look, the reality here is that you can't just simply replace the income tax. You need something that will actually generate a sizable amount of revenue, and we don't have that right now. That's just the reality. Now, is this something you could do long term? Well, theoretically, sure. It just requires a massive reduction in the size and the scope of government, which, frankly, let me be clear, I think that would be a great thing. This country survived for a very long time. It's in the entire beginning of its existence was funding the federal government solely from tariffs, essentially. But that was because government was only about 3% or so of the national income. Today, it's about 20 or to 25%, depending on exactly how we want to measure these things. So again, you would need to massively shrink the size of government. But if you do that, yes, you could ramp up tariffs and you could cover the federal budget, no problem. But the idea that we could simply flip a switch and convert from one revenue source to the other, it's just not possible right now. You would need to not only greatly expand how much we're actually tariffing, in other words, the size of international trade, but you'd also have to greatly increase the rate at which you are taxing international trade. And obviously those two would be mutually exclusive.
Let me ask, from a practical standpoint, how far apart are we talking about? Because the amount of revenues that the tariffs are bringing in are far more than what people had expected them to be. But it's still probably not 21% of the of the federal budget. So how do we? What is the gap that would be there that would be necessary to fill through a new system?
Well, you're talking about billions of dollars versus trillions of dollars. Okay. Literally, it's not as if we need to, let's say, double tariff revenue and then we close the gap. No, we are much
still a sizable
apart.
hole there. Okay, then let me ask you this, because I remember back when Alan Keyes ran for president, he was a famous flat taxer. Steve Forbes was a famous fair taxer. There's been systems that have been proposed. Consumption, I think, is a very fair tax to go, spread throughout the population. I think a flat tax is more fair than what we have currently. What would be the likely ability of us to move to a system similar to one of those in the interim? And could we at least repeal the amount of income tax back that tariffs are impacting right now?
Unfortunately, in this political environment, I don't think you could get enough support, even just from folks on the right, to implement something like a flat tax. So I think the best you could do would be more of a Reagan-style reform where you condense down the number of brackets. In other words, you still have progressive marginal income tax rates, where as you earn more, you get taxed at a higher and higher rate on your marginal earnings, but you're going to greatly reduce the number of brackets, and you're going to compress down those rates. In other words,
they looked a lot different under Carter than, I think under Carter the top rate was 75%. So it was somewhere very, very high north of there, and Reagan brought it down to, I want to say, the mid 40s or mid 30s. It's significantly different.
Right. And not only were you reducing those top marginal rates, but again, you were greatly reducing the number of brackets and the complexity of the tax code. And in exchange for those lower marginal rates, you just started getting rid of deductions whole cloth, which is what we want. We don't want to be distorting behavior via the tax code. Instead, we want to increase the incentives that people have to work, to produce. And we do that by simply allowing them to keep more of their own money.
Trump did this in his first term, didn't he? He did a Reagan-esque style reduction, I believe, in all of the brackets.
Yeah, we saw marginal tax rate reductions, and that was a big reason why the economy took off beginning in 2018. And we saw not only in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we saw not only those reductions in personal income tax rates, but a big reduction in the corporate rate. And that was so important because we have to realize corporations don't actually pay taxes, not in any meaningful sense. Yes, I understand there's a clerk at the corporation who sits there and writes the check and sends it off to the government. I get that. But who actually bears the burden of that? When corporations pay more in corporate income taxes, they do three things. They give workers lower pay increases. You have shareholders getting a lower rate of return, and you have customers paying higher prices. So those are the three groups of people that actually pay a higher tax because of the corporate income tax rate. And therefore, cutting the rate provides relief to those three groups. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw people getting faster wage increases. We saw bigger returns to shareholders. And we saw actually some price relief in terms of what customers were paying in a lot of instances.
And then COVID hit.
Yes, exactly.
And blew it all up. EJ, let me ask you this. What's the appetite for any reform on taxes right now on Capitol Hill? Everybody that if you watch the news, even to some degree, Fox on some level, there's this kind of like, oh, the midterms are in trouble. The reforms haven't kicked in well enough yet. We're not feeling the success of the programs yet. I kind of am of the mind that even the stuff he's done already, we are going to feel it in 2026. I think some of the stuff doesn't even kick in until January. But what is the appetite to tackle the tax reform and say this has to be a major priority, especially with a very small margin that Speaker Johnson's working with?
Well, so I'm a monetary scientist, not a political scientist. I suppose take this all with a grain of salt. But from my perspective, there's not much appetite to do anything at all when it comes to taxes. First of all, you have everyone on the left who just wants to see Trump fail. Full stop. It's hard to find any of them who actually care about the country or who care about the common man, given not just what they say, but what they actually do. Their primary objective definitely seems to be that they just want to stop Trump at all costs.
Which is why they throttled us right into a shutdown and didn't seem to care.
Right, exactly. And if you look at all of the things that they said they were shutting down the government for, they didn't get any of them, right? By the time the Democrats actually agreed to reopen the government, they got no concessions. None of the things they said they were, that they were allegedly fighting for, they didn't gain ground on any of those things. So it just goes to show you they weren't negotiating in good faith. If they were negotiating in good faith, they would have voted to keep the government open, and then they would have just simply continued negotiating.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.
Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
So that's a little teaser from the T Collective's new album called Such Tiny Shoulders. And for those of you that help us liberate a human slave this Christmas, we're going to give you a copy of that for free as a way of saying thank you. It's actually a 2-album set and brand new release, but lots of great Christmas music on it. And the reason that we want to do that is because we want to say thank you for liberating human beings that have been forgotten about and largely mistreated for the entire time that they've been in the captivity of other people. We're talking about human slaves. And I want to say thank you because those of you that have helped us already free more than 100 this year, we're so grateful for every single one of those lives. But we only have until the end of the year to liberate the remaining 200 plus. So we need your help right now. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. Or if you want to know more about it, just go to bringherhome.org. It lays out all of the details as to what your gift provides and how it helps the slave after they're liberated. It actually gives them everything they need to start their life brand new back in their home country of South Sudan, where they were kidnapped 15, 20, 25 years ago, and some of them, again, experiencing brutal treatment the entire time they are in the hands of their captors. But nothing captures the story like hearing from one of the slaves themselves. Take a listen.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in McCullough Gate. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. And if I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find him in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Come on, friends. It's one of the most exciting things my family has done over the last 5 years. I want you to know the joy to set a human being free from slavery this holiday season. It will change your life, and you'll get some nice Christmas music sent your way as a thank you. 888-342-1010 or bringherhome.org.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.
Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all things related. You want the podcast, you want the TV show, you want the columns, you want the social media. It's just there. It's all there, thatkevinshow.com. You can even enter to win a flat screen television. I don't know how we're giving one away, but someone told me we are, so go check that out under the promotions tab. We're always talking about important things, and I think it's important to note that President Trump was right, and he won the shutdown. Here to discuss with us from the America First Policy Institute is Hannah Anderson. Hannah, before we get into the Obamacare issue, what's your sense of how HHS has changed, specifically from the immediate administration that came in between the two Trump terms? Like, was it jarring? I mean, did people develop whiplash from how hard some of those policy changes went into effect?
Absolutely. And I love that you asked the question, because this is one of the best things about working for Bobby Kennedy is he loves people. He just loves people. And the last administration,
I think the president does too, and that's what nobody will ever give him credit for.
And Bobby Kennedy and President Trump love people more than any other politician that I think I've ever encountered. And that was one of the most tremendous things about working over at HHS, is because every decision that was made was not about what does big business want, what do the bureaucrats want. It was what does the everyday American need? And, that shows itself in everything from, do we have transparency and accountability in our food packaging and food labeling and food dyes for moms and kids, all the way to kind of what the topic of the segment is, which is on Obamacare.
Yeah.
And I think it's really jarring for the bureaucrats over there to have conversations with the secretary who doesn't go out and say, well, what do the insurance companies want? He says, what do people need, right? Like what is critical for people to have in order to become healthy? And health insurance is how we currently pay for our health care. So how do we optimize that to make sure people can take all the steps they need to be healthy?
And it's been a mess. I mean, the insurance aspect of healthcare in America is beyond corrupt. It's beyond crooked. I mean, you're looking at when you can't even get the same price for the same procedure, sometimes at the same facility, depending on who's administering it. Like, this is the kind of stuff that's driving people crazy. And there are a lot of sector or industry-wide changes that could be introduced that would reduce cost and actually increase access. If things weren't as expensive, more people would be able to do more of what they need for their health, particularly in the most at-risk populations. But I'm getting ahead of myself because the Obamacare subsidies that Hakeem Jeffries, the Dollar Store Obama, and Chuck Schumer wanted to push through were, in essence, kind of fake and fraudulent. They were set up during COVID. They were for people that didn't really need them. The government portion of subsidies that the mandate was supposed to take care of was how we were supposed to fund Obamacare from the beginning. And then when the Supreme Court shut that down, now you've got kind of a hole in the middle of the funding mechanism. So I'm going to ask you what I asked a couple of experts last week or the week before last. If you had a blank slate and you erased everything that was up there and you said, how do we start over? Where would Hannah Anderson put her focus, and what would be the first 2 to 3 steps you would take?
Oh, man. Don't you dare ask that kind of question to a policy expert, because we'll take 3 hours of time. But I'll simplify it, right? I think the first step is what the president's trying to take right now is just give people their money. Healthcare is the only sector of the economy that's left where I'm kind of forced to make these tiny decisions based on what someone is purchasing on my behalf. An insurance company, a group health plan, an employer, whoever has purchased healthcare on my behalf, and I don't really have a say into what happens with it. So First step, I would say, just give me my money, right? If it's Obamacare, it's, my money, but also the taxpayers' money. If it's my money through my employer, it's part of my benefit. So give me my money. And let me really decide what has value for me. I think, 2, give me my prices. How am I supposed to? I'm a great shopper. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a great shopper. I can shop. I can find a good deal, but I have to know the prices. And the same thing is true in healthcare. I went to a just routine doctor's appointment the other day. I pay cash because I find I get a better deal that way. And I asked them at the counter, hey, what do I owe for this? They couldn't tell me. They couldn't tell me ahead of time, and they couldn't tell me after the visit. And I said that is the only time that I could be purchasing either an $800 service or an $8,000 service or an $80 service, and I'm not going to know. So I say, number 2, I need to know my prices. And then number 3, give me some options. And right now, so many consumers and patients are stuck into one kind of plan, and they don't really have a lot of options on designing or having, a lot of different flexibilities. And so, if I had to say what's number 3, a lot more options, a lot more flexibility, and less rigidity. That's a word.
What are the obstacles to implementing those 3, what seem to be kind of common sense, no-brainer logical steps?
Again, regulations, and I think there's a little bit of trust. This is something that I was talking about.
I would say after COVID, when it comes to the American people, there's a ton of trust deficiency when
100%.
it comes to big health institution, government-related health institutions in the U.S. And Bobby Kennedy's a wonderful man. President Trump is a wonderful president. They love people. We get all of that. But the damage done in the COVID betrayals has left its mark.
You saw that during COVID.
Yep.
They didn't want to give us the most up-to-date information. They didn't want to tell us the truth. They wanted
factual
to
information.
Yeah, factual.
Just, basics.
And so I think you have a trust gap where even Republican policymakers really don't want to give the American people kind of that ability to make the decisions on their own health care. And then I think you have this is what I was about to say, is when I talk to my colleagues on the Hill and former colleagues on the Hill, a lot of them, they're just overcomplicating it. They're worried about second or third order effects. And I say, you know what, it's the right thing to do is just give people their money. And that's what the president has asked you to do. That's the kind of bill that he wants to sign. There's ways to amend the statute that are direct and could just give people their money on Obamacare. And let's just do that. I'm sure they said the same thing about no tax on tips. I'm sure they said the same thing on tariffs. But let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just find a way.
And you can follow all of Hannah's work and the entire work of America First Policy Institute, one of my favorite groups, afpi.org. Get you there, afpi.org. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. It's That Kevin Show.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.
I'm the mayor of New York City, Mr. President, and I came here for one reason. Do you have any spare change? I promised a ton of free stuff and I'm desperate for someone to pay for it. Donald, he's asking you nicely. Since you're a billionaire, you should be the one to pay for the free buses. Shut up, Benny. We all agreed Zoran would do the talking. Oh, alright, that's it. Oof. All right, you two, that's enough. Oh, oof. So what do you think, Don? Will you give us some money? I'm not gonna give you any money, Zoran, because I think a bunch of government subsidies is a crappy idea. Let me get this straight. You have all this money laying around and you're not gonna give me any? I guess the rumors are true. You're a fascist pig. No, I'm not.
Well, you are because you won't pay for the people of New York City to take the bus for free.
Quiet, Bernie.
Oh, hey, that's it.
Oof. Hey, cut that out. Oh, oof. All right, it looks like Donald Trump here is a fascist cheapskate, so we'll have to figure out another way to make money. Come on, you two.
Zoran, all the free stuff you promised is going to cost around $11 billion, and you start as mayor on January 1st. There's no way we can raise that kind of money in only 30 days.
Shut up, Bernie. Don't be such a negative Nelly.
Oh, cut that out.
Oof. Come on, focus, you guys.
Oh, oof. I'm sorry, boss.
That's all right, I forgive you. Anyway, I think I know exactly how we'll raise the money.
By the end of the month? How?
Well, as you know, Thursday is the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That means millions of people will be on the streets. Millions of people with money. So I'm thinking we go to every single one of those son of a guns and ask them to spare some change.
Zoran, I don't think we should be asking your constituents for money.
Shut up, Bernie.
Oh.
Somewhere in the city that defined holiday magic is a man who wants a little eggnog with his mistletoe. And that guy would like to carol you. Featuring the musical stylings of Antoni and the Dream in Color Singers. Still to come, the Independent Women Forum's Carrie Sheffield, a convergence with Pastor Greg Laurie, the true story. Todd Chatman joins us, ending slavery in our time. Comedy sketches from Al Berry, the Babylon Bee, and Nick Peterson. And in the spotlight, it's Lady A on this holiday edition. And now from Times Square, former radio host who's alleged to be a captain of a very fast boat. Here's the Chatman.
Dave, you got to cut that out. There's nothing to that. I've never driven a boat from Venezuela. Stop it. Time for news. Let's go. I'm McCullough. Happy weekend, everyone. The only place where the news is stranger than late night comedy and somehow even less believable. We begin with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, proudly announcing that his marriage is as strong as it's ever been, which is exactly the kind of thing you only say publicly when it's definitely strong and absolutely not because your spouse just found your browser history in Washington politics. This is known as the Public Display of Affection Act of 2025. Meanwhile, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has gone radio silent on whether she plans to revise her end-of-the-world prediction. You know, the one where we all explode in a ball of carbon around, well, right about now. When pressed for comments, aides said she's very busy checking her watch, waiting for the oceans to rise and polar bears to file their lawsuits. In red state news, Republican leaders are working on new congressional maps that, and stay with me on this, will benefit Republicans. Do we even draw the same states anymore? That's what some are asking. Or should we just start sketching elephants and donkeys directly onto the ballots? On the health front, Simon Cowell, the man who has made millions by judging other people, says he's aging backwards thanks to a controversial blood rinsing procedure. Yeah. Doctors warn that side effects may include looking suspiciously younger than your last season on television and waking up being Benjamin Button. A federal judge has ordered the unsealing of the Epstein records because apparently the public isn't convinced by the he magically did it himself in the most guarded facility in America explanation. Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing a phased plan to eliminate property taxes in Florida, proving that the Sunshine State isn't just where taxes go to retire, it's where taxes go to die. Economists say it could pay for itself, assuming Floridians continue their proud tradition of letting New Yorkers move in with giant wallets. In entertainment news, George Clooney once tricked Hollywood royalty into believing that Bill Clinton prank called them, which is hilarious until you realize for the most of the 90s, Bill Clinton basically did prank call all of America. The D.C. pipe bomb suspect appeared in court today, or this week rather, with the family cheering him like he'd just graduated from clown college. CNN's Jake Tapper briefly called the suspect a white man, right before showing a photo of someone who, well, wasn't. Somewhere journalism professors wept, then updated their syllabus to include step 1, look at the picture! A January 6th defendant pardoned by Trump is back in trouble, proving the old saying, you can take the guy out of the riot, but you can't take the riot out of the guy. The federal government rolled out a new Christmas tree savings plan because nothing says fiscal discipline like discount pine. You're going to throw it away in 30 days while the national debt climbs another $1 trillion. A new study says America's most stressful airport is all of them. But one was crowned the champion due to its unique blend of long check-ins, departure delays, and TSA agents who haven't seen things they can never unsee. Finally, California has escalated its war on grocery bags, now banning reusable ones. State officials insist they are saving the planet, one increasingly expensive trip to Whole Foods at a time. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Hunger, starvation, not having food. These are just a few of the many problems that real people face every single day, which is why I'm so encouraged to share with you the story of these poor African children who, without a penny to their names, banded together to raise enough money to feed one of those people in need of nourishment. Ariana Grande.
Tumekuwa na njaa kwa muda, lakini sidhani kama kuna mtu yeyote katika kijiji changu amewahi kwenda mbali kama Ariana Grande.
Sikuweza kumudu dola ya Galinda, hivyo nikatengeneza moja kwa kutumia vijiti, lakini bado inaonekana yenye afya kuliko ile halisi.
Labda misaada ya kigeni ipelekwe kwa Miss Grande badala yetu, kwani misaada yetu mingi inamezwa na serikali yetu fisadi.
Ndugu wangu amenipa nusu ya chakula chake kwa miaka 5 iliyopita ili nisinyauke kabisa, na bado nikimlinganisha na Ariana, ndugu wangu ni bonge nono.
Now that you've heard from these children, take some time to reflect on the blessings you've been given in your life. Reach deep within yourself, and then do the same thing you always do. Absolutely nothing. Trusting that the compassion you feel for others will be met by the actions of others, such as these children or the U.S. government. This message is brought to you by the Feed Ariana Fund.
How do we convince conservatives to change their political views? Change their political views. We need a playbook. Let's get to work. Are we capable of peaceful protests?
You mean like burning cities to the ground?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Why are you dressed like an American ISIS convert? Are you a Harvard professor now?
I thought we support Hamas this week.
Do we? Are we done with Ukraine? Rule of thumb for the playbook. What do conservatives always say we need?
Meds? Helmets?
No, what our country needs. Law and order. So we do the opposite. Right, torch cop cars and Hail Mary Molotov cocktails like we're the Antifa Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, but we're committing eco-friendly arson, right?
That only matters when it suits us.
So it's really no different than our other causes.
How about to save the environment, though, we pay people to block traffic.
Want me to put out flyers on Subarus?
We sit Indian style.
It's cross-dress applesauce now.
Whatever, across highways, during rush hour, holding hands.
And if they don't like it, we rip them out of their cars and beat them to death.
If they don't see our point of view on climate change after that,
then there's nothing we can do for them. You can only be so loving and tolerant.
Right, start forest fires, though. We're gonna need proof it's real.
Feels like a lot of fire ideas.
What if we smash storefront windows and we steal Nikes, iPhones, big screen TVs?
Undocumented shopping. That's easily justifiable. Like what? People can't get bread anymore?
Oh, and vandalism. Keying, and smearing poop on people's cars.
What?
Well, if we like the founder of an electric car company, and then we decide we don't, we vandalize random people's electric cars.
That makes total sense.
We are so classy. I got another one. Spray paint buildings and statues.
BT.
Nothing says justice like racist painted across the Lincoln Memorial or whatever.
Well, I don't think he...
No. I'm gonna roll. Free speech.
Who doesn't love free?
No more.
Yeah, no, free speech sucks.
We limit free speech and any ideas we don't like. Well, how would we silence them? Like with duct tape? So what do we have so far? So we have burning cities to the ground, blocking traffic, ripping people out of their cars, starting forest fires, vandalizing cars, buildings, and statues, limiting speech we don't like, and silencing people. But the biggest threat is right-wing terrorism. Well, obviously.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Here he is from New York. That Kevin. Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show from Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. Glad to be with you. And every week, I always speak with the good people at the Independent Women's Forum. Always love to see what they are doing, what they are involved in, how they are fighting the fight for the everyday mom, everyday woman, everyday family, everyday man, everyday child. Women outnumber us in the culture, and and there's more of them that outnumber the left than that are the left. But you never hear that. You never see that in media anywhere. So that's why I highlight what they do every single week. Carrie Sheffield is one of their senior contributors, members, advisors, voices. She does a little bit of all of it over there, and longtime friend of the show. Carrie, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin, and thanks for amplifying our voices.
Yeah, well, it's not just something. I mean, it's a principle in my life. We have to, if we eliminate the what women actually think from the discussion, we're gonna miss the goal big time. And you guys are fighting the fight in ways that nobody else is. Let's talk about a couple of things. Let's start with policy. There's this prices and freedom of pricing and this sort of thing that as it relates to healthcare. And we've talked a lot about healthcare in the last few weeks on the show. I think the Obamacare subsidies and the shutdown kind of re-highlighted the frustrations that people have with what's going on. But there's a lot of free market aspects that are missing in the current healthcare systems. And if we did some things like let people know how much things cost, people could make better decisions for themselves, no?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we have now. And I appreciate President Trump during the shutdown debate. He was calling out the subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies. So basically, Democrats were keeping the government shut down for weeks because they wanted to keep shoveling more and more taxpayer money to insurance companies. And I made the analogy that's like continuing to shovel more taxpayer money to universities. And both healthcare and university tuition, they have far exceeded overall inflation in the last 50, 60 years because of the endless government subsidies. You know, that's what they say. When you tax something, you get less of it. When you subsidize something, you get more of it. So the more we subsidize money going into the pocket of the big health insurance companies, the higher prices we get because they have no incentive to lower it. And that's the backdrop of why at Independent Women's Voice, we have supported a bill that would essentially hold insurance companies and hospitals accountable, because a big reason why the prices keep going up, in addition to the subsidies, it's because we don't have transparency. We don't have prices. I'm sure you and many of your listeners, when you go to get a medical, just a basic checkup, or maybe, God forbid, a hospital visit, we almost never know what it's going to cost up front. And yet it's actually required that the hospitals disclose their prices up front. And very few hospitals fully comply with this. It's laughable. It ranges between, 17, 18% sometimes to 36% of hospitals who comply with this. And we know through the principles of economics that when there is, competitive pricing, prices go down. And so this is why there's no price pressure to go down, because there's no competition. And so it is under regulation that these hospitals are required to do it, but the enforcement mechanism, the teeth were really pulled out of it by the Biden administration. The enforcement mechanisms were pared back. And so there's a lot that both Trump can do unilaterally, but also legislatively, we've come out in support of a bill that's been introduced. It's actually bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans, senators have introduced it. And it's called the Patients Deserve Price Tags Act.
Yeah.
So anybody listening, tell your senator to sign on board with the Patients Deserve Price Tags Act.
Actually, if you just want to write this phone number down, I have it memorized for years now, 202-224-3121. That is the switchboard at the Capitol. You can ask for your senator by name and be connected to their office. They'll keep track of the calls that come in. That's the fun thing, Carrie, about Washington. They do answer those phones, and they do keep track of what people have to say about things like this. But the transparency on pricing, it's only part of the problem, and not that this bill will necessarily address all of the issues, but like even the cost of a procedure being different at a hospital than at an out-service patient's facility versus even sometimes a doctor's office where you could get maybe 3 different options about where to get the procedure done, and it will come up with 3 different price tags. And sometimes insurance companies will only, fund it if you do it at the hospital or, under certain circumstances. In other words, there's a lot of these artificial props that are keeping those prices inflated, that are keeping the overall industry so expensive. And if we really came in with a wrecking ball and said, how would we approach this from a free market? Obama tried to do it with a mandate that was so burdensome especially on young people and other people that didn't, men don't need pregnancy coverage. I'm not going to ever give birth to a baby. Like I know that some people like AOC and Ilhan Omar may be sad about that, but that's never going to happen for me. Why would I pay for something like that? It's these types of ridiculous overreaches that have got us to this place where we are. And I think it's good that we've revisited this because this really is a big hit to the pocketbook. It's like 1/5 of the economy.
Right. And apologies, I'm getting over a cold. There's been estimates from economists. A group of them wrote a letter recently to the Senate saying that if we had full price transparency, we could save $1 trillion in healthcare spending, which is that's insane. That's bigger than the GDP of most countries in the world.
Yeah.
By multiples. So and you're right. So we work with an organization that is called the Patients' Rights Advocate, PRA, and they do a semi-annual survey of hospitals and how compliant they are with the transparency rules. And like I said, they found it right. The most recent one, it was only 17% of hospitals were compliant.
Terrible. That's terrible.
And so I made the analogy to say, like, imagine if you took your car to the shop and the mechanics only tested 17% of your car. Or if you go to a restaurant and you order steak and you only get 17% of your steak. We would never accept this, but we've normalized it in part by continuing to shovel those subsidies. And another thing the PRA does, the Patients' Rights Advocate, they look at the wide differential, like you mentioned. So, for example, a cervical spinal fusion at the University of Kansas Hospital main campus. So there's a wide variety within the same system. It went from a low of just $650 to a high of $26,000.
Oh my gosh.
Which is insane.
For the same procedure.
Campus.
Yeah.
The same procedure at the same campus. And then they also found within the same state, within Florida, for example, a mammogram for both breasts in Florida ranged from a low of $32 at Cleveland Clinic Martin North Hospital in Stuart, Florida, to a high of $15,000 at the Florida North Hospital in Gainesville. And this is way, way above the cost of living for an urban area.
Sure.
It's like insanely skyrocketing differentials within the same state. And so it's because there is no competitiveness.
Yeah. Carrie Sheffield's with us. Stick around. She's going to tell us a very personal story, very different direction.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.
Welcome back. It's That Kevin Show from Times Square. Very glad you're with us. Very glad to have Carrie Sheffield back with us as well. In addition to her work at the Independent Women's Forum, she's also a best-selling author, had great success with her debut memoir of her own life that came out just last year, and we did a whole show on it. And Carrie, I was very... I've known you for a long time. I learned a lot about you that I didn't know, and I was very glad that you told this story and had the courage to come out, because there's a lot of parts of life for you that have been painful and not fun. I think we all have those to varying degrees, worse or less than others, but we all have some. But to have the courage to come out and speak it is really powerful, and I think it helps people. But you and Greg Laurie just had a connection with his recent crusade in Utah, and I wanted you to tell that story.
Yeah, and thanks for letting me talk about it. And yeah, if folks want to check out the conversation you and I had earlier, they can do it if they want to see the book here. It's called Motorhome Prophecies, A Journey of Healing and Forgiveness. So this story is about how my ancestors helped to found the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, broader known as the Mormon diaspora. There are lots of different offshoots within that, but they worked with Joseph Smith, the founder. They worked with Brigham Young, his successor. And so I'm, at this point, I think in our family, we might have 8 or 10 generations, because my cousins have kids who have kids. And so very entrenched in the LDS culture and theology. And unfortunately, my father was very abusive. He eventually got excommunicated from LDS, and he made us live in a motorhome. That's why it's called Motorhome Prophecies. And that's the backdrop for this situation with Greg Laurie. For a long time, I had a lot of anger toward the LDS church because I was angry that they did not prevent my father from abusing my siblings and I. 4 of my siblings have attempted suicide. I was suicidal. I talk in depth about how I was agnostic for 12 years because I was bitter and angry at the way that my father abused God's name to abuse us. And so through lots and lots of healing that the book talks about, I've reconciled with the LDS community, even though I say in the book, I think it's theologically wrong, but culturally strong. And what's been very interesting is that the leader of the LDS Church, who recently died, he died a week or just a few days after Charlie Kirk was murdered. He had brought in, his name was President Nelson. Russell M. Nelson. He had brought in some incredible reforms within the LDS Church, to the point where, since its inception, the LDS Church has had a lot of back and forth between their theology and traditional Orthodox, Protestant Christian denominations that follow the Nicene Creed. And so that's the backdrop for Greg Laurie. So Charlie Kirk was murdered at the university, at Utah Valley University, which is located in Orem, Utah, which is in Utah County, which is the highest concentrated county in the world, I believe, of LDS people. And many people outside of Utah and outside of LDS had never heard of this university until they heard about Charlie's murder. And the students there have been depressed. It's been as people can understand, it's not been a great place to, feel excited about the fact that there was a murder, televised live on your campus. Yeah. And so the students were feeling down. And Greg Laurie, I'm sure folks listening here to Salem, they know about him. He's an incredible pastor. The film Jesus Revolution is based on his life. Right. And he was planning to do one of his massive revivals. He gets stadiums and packs them, and it's like Billy Graham, Next Generation. Yeah. And he was planning to come to Utah, but he was going to come to a hockey stadium, I believe, or some more secular, or not secular, a venue that was not affiliated with the university. Well, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, the campus of Utah Valley University invited Greg Laurie to come and be their guest of honor to give one of his revivals in the heartbeat of LDS. Wow. So you've got this evangelical Protestant, very well-known pastor coming in to give his message at the heartbeat of LDS. And so for me, where I had my own personal journey of reconciliation, it really meant a lot. And my friend Eric Metaxas connected me with Greg, and Greg ended up asking me to help him with the drafts of his speech that he prepared for this rally. And so for this revival. And so I was honored that he had asked me to do that, because my life in a lot of ways is really bridging exactly.
Well, it's a symbolic picture of everything you've been through and kind of coming to fruition there.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.
Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
I'm so glad that you're here. 888-342-1010. I'm so thankful that you care. The people that listen to my voice, Kevin McCullough out of New York, I know that you care deeply about the world. If you didn't, you wouldn't listen to me. You care about the circumstances that the world is dealing with, all of the news that comes at us, and sometimes not knowing what to make of it. And then there's also the news that we never hear about, which is things like human slavery that are still being practiced in Northern Sudan. And here to discuss this is Todd Chatman. Todd, always appreciate you coming back. Slaves do exist in greater numbers than ever before, even after Wilberforce, even after the great abolitionists came and went in the Western world. Much of the rest of the world, particularly in Southeast Asia and on the African continent, you still have tremendous evil being practiced by slavery, people that are taking other human beings as their own property. Yeah, but our friends at Christian Solidarity International, they are doing something about that. Explain what this all means, especially to someone like this woman named Nicole.
Yeah, so we're talking about largely women, but there were men taken captive as well back in the 1990s.
Of the men, just to be clear, most of the men got killed.
Yeah, they did.
If they acted up at all, the slave masters were like, "You're not worth the effort," and they were gone.
Yeah.
So
and there are, you're right about that. Primarily, that's the case. There were some that did get taken captive. A lot of the men that were actually liberating, oftentimes, were actually born in slavery. Right? They were born to these enslaved moms, and so now they've grown up in slavery. But bottom line, these were people that were just taken captive simply because they were Christian. And these Muslim marauders were allowed and empowered, actually equipped, armed, oftentimes by the government at that time, to go in and basically do a religious cleansing, if you will. And so they were taken captive up in what is now North Sudan. CSI was actually instrumental in getting that slave taking stopped back when it was going on, working with the UN and the governments there. But they stopped short of mandating to the people that had taken these captives, slaves, as slaves. They didn't say you have to release them. They said, yeah, we're not going to do that. CSI said, okay, well, then we'll just, trust the Lord and look for a way to do that. So ever since then, thanks to generous people like you, slaves have been freed every year. And every year we have, for about, how many years now? 10 years, Kevin, been partnering with you and your program?
At least, I think, a little more than a decade, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And every year you step forward, you being the listener, step forward and free these captives, $250. And not only does that negotiate the freedom for one of these slaves, no cash, by the way, ever changes hands. We basically barter a cattle vaccine that these cattle ranchers need, and we set the captive free, bring her back into South Sudan, set her up in a whole new life. We'll tell you more about that in a couple minutes. But I was reading a story here of a young woman now, Nicole is her name, but she remembers, even though she was a child, she remembers being taken. She was old enough to understand what was happening. She remembers the fear, the terror of strangers coming in at gunpoint and firing guns and burning their home and beating her parents. And then she was taken to the north and forced into a home where she had to sleep on the floor in a tiny storage room. The children of this family, they were allowed to beat her at will. I mean, she was no more than just like a stray dog to them. Probably not even that. They called her every name, that demeaning name they could: dirty, jingy, dog, donkey, stupid. She worked all the time, carried water, washing clothes, cooking. Even though if she was sick, she had to work. They didn't care. You think they got her a doctor when she was sick? No, they didn't care. They were just going to use her up. She was there to just do what they needed her to do. And then as she grew older, her master began to rape her. She ended up having 2 kids. When she finally did escape from her captivity, she actually was not able to bring her kids with her. Just a heartbreaking situation. But she knew that, she was not going to survive very long, and she chose to come into freedom. So now, thanks to your generosity, one of our slave retrievers found her at a watering hole, brought her back into the South. She's grateful to be free, but you can imagine, as a mom, separated from her kids, she's praying that someday her children will be able to be freed and returned to her. That's just one story out of hundreds, over 100,000 stories just like that we've heard. And there's a lot of common elements in there. But the bottom line is, this is a human being that was taken captive and has been abused in every way possible their entire life. And today you have a beautiful opportunity to set that person free in the name of Jesus.
It's a human being that has the Imago Dei stamped in her DNA, made in God's image, loved by the God who made her, created for a purpose that is so much more that because of human sin, she's been robbed of from being able to reach. And yet, if you really understand, if you really truly understand the deep, deep gratitude and joy that these women express when they are released, it is an amazing thing. Let me walk you through what happens when they get freed. First of all, they have to travel kind of by night to make sure that they are safe and secure back to the southern border. They were walked into slavery. It may sound kind of odd or cruel or whatever, but they have to kind of be walked out of slavery. But when they get to the South Sudan border, which is now a border, it used to be just all the same country. Now there's an actual border there. There is a recovery area where they are able to go. And what CSI has for them in that setting are medical experts, counselors, other professionals, in terms of nutrition and other things that are helping these women, many of whom who have been emaciated, starved, beaten, grotesquely abused, eyes poked out, all kinds of abuse that you can't even, we couldn't even process it. They for the first time are allowed to tell anybody about it. And in some instances in these stories, some of these slaves have been disallowed from speaking for years. Now, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the control, the absolute evil that it takes for a slave master to say, if you so much as say anything in my presence, you will be punished. And punishment is not nice. It's beatings. It's physical abuse. So for them just to do something like sit down privately without anyone else listening and tell a CSI counselor their story, to try to help remember their name, because for some of these women, they've only been called a Muslim assigned name for the last 2 decades. Some of them, since they're a little girl, have not been able to remember what their name is. Some of them do. If there are family that CSI is then able to locate based on what they understand about who the person is, they try to locate them. In many instances, there are no family members.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.
That Kevin Show.